Once you get to our classroom, what you're going to want to do is you'll see the assignment is for PBIS. So there are just 3 basic instructions. You're going to want to open up the slide deck. You're going to click on slide 2. There's going to be a link for you to click on. If you can click on that link, it'll take you to a Google form. And if you can answer that, once you're done with that, come on back to the slide deck and you'll wait for your fellow ninjas. We're going to give everyone about 2 minutes to click on and from slide 2 to hit to this Google form and answer, and then we're going to come all back here. And it says in the directions too, if you are new, it's okay and you don't know, but think back to the new teacher training, kind of give it your best shot. For those of you who've been with us, kind of think back to the last time we shared out this with you all.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pettis, was it 3:30 or 3:45? I'm sorry, I thought I heard 3:30. Thanks.
What are you asking for, ma'am? Miss Bradfield, if you can, make sure you click on the form and don't add down here below, please. Thank you. All right, we got about 45 seconds left, and then we're all going to come back. If you're already done with the Google form, if you can, click on back here on slide 2. I see some of you bouncing around. Please make sure that you stick with me on slide 2, please.
A couple of us aren't in that classroom.
Okay, there was invites that were sent out to everyone. Who was it that did not receive an invite?
Mr. Pettis, what happened is I believe there was 2 links sent out, one for like 3:45 and the one for 2:30. So I'm assuming people are in the other link.
I had one interval or one meeting that was initially for 3. I reset that one for 2:30. So the admin had a meeting because we were way back when had scheduled a PBIS committee meeting at 3:45, but y'all should be looking at the 2:30 meeting link. And teachers shouldn't have access unless they're on my committee for the other one. Ms. Hernandez, if you can, fill out in the Google form and not on the notes section down below, please. Thank you.
Mr. Pettis, I'm going to do an all-call announcement just to advise staff members to make sure to jump into the 2:30 meeting if they haven't already done so.
All right, thank you. So we're all going to kind of hang out here on our second slide until everyone joins us.
Mr. Pettis, Elizabeth Gutierrez, just a second.
And gentlemen, if you haven't logged in, log into the 2:30 PBIS meeting, the 2:30 PBIS meeting. Thank you.
Elizabeth Gutierrez went to the Waffle and classroom, but she doesn't have the Fabulous Flores tab.
All right, let me go back in.
That's exactly what mine is doing.
Who else was the last person just shared out that they did not have?
Times.
All right, we pushed out an invite to you two. Anyone else? And I apologize for that. The invite should be popping up in your inbox. So these are the little tech snags that we always talk about that we just got to kind of roll with it till we have it all fleshed out. So again, for those of you who didn't get the initial invite, I apologize, nothing personal. And again, if you're already logged in, make sure that you're hanging out with us on slide number 2 of the slide deck. That's the one that reads, what is PBIS? And again, everyone should have already clicked on the Google form to answer that question for us. See, Coach Flores is trying to get ahead of me on slide 3. Who do I have hanging out here? Ms. Trevino, if you want to come join us back on slide 2 real quick, please. And Ms. Bradfield as well. All right, I'm going to get rolling here. Again, we are recording this, so if you want to, get all the pertinent information on PBIS, we'll be able to come back and we'll share it out once that recording is available. So if we want to scroll on down here all the way to slide 35, someone had put this in there. Actually, it's just a joke. PBIS is not punishing bad insubordinate students. It's just a joke. No one actually put that in there. So if y'all want to come with me and scroll back up to slide number 3 and click on that, you should be seeing what is our UCISD paw print. And again, we just want to remind everyone now that we're switching gears and we're doing the blended learning that we are going to be, this is going to be kind of our centerpiece on everything that we do for professional development, and then also for you all, for teachers, on rolling out your instruction to your kiddos when they come back either in person or virtually. And again, as we talked about last week, we're not abandoning Fundamental 5. We're not abandoning the 4 C's. Those are really going to be embedded in these different components of the Captivate, Discover, Personalize, Reflect, and Inspire. So if you want to drop on down to slide number 4, and what we're going to just briefly talk about right here for the purpose of our PBIS instruction and course today is norms and expectations. So we expect you all to be an active participant. I will remain logged into my Google account throughout the duration of this. My camera will remain on at all times. I do understand some of you are in the computer lab, so you may not have a computer with an actual camera that's on or actually has one. Again, if you can, make sure that your microphones are muted at all times unless I'm sharing. I'm not going to criticize others' ideas, and I will not change or delete others' work on purpose as we move through here. All right? So if we're all doing good, if you can show me a thumbs up in your camera. Perfect, perfect. All right, if you want to drop on down then and click on slide number 5. So our objective for today, we will cover the basic principles of PBIS and how we implement the system across our campus. And Mr. Salazar, if you can, do you mind unmuting your mic and doing the I will portion of the statement?
I will have a fundamental understanding of PBIS and will be able to teach our campus expectations to our students and assist in developing digital counterparts for our distance learners.
Awesome, thank you very much. So this is where we're going to be focusing on PBIS. For those of you who are new and don't know, I absolutely love PBIS. This is something that was kind of the first district initiative when I was still in the classroom. I had an opportunity at a previous campus to be a part of. And the more I've been involved with it, the more I love it and just learn more and more about it. Plus, as I've switched over to the administrative role, I'm learning from teachers on kind of new and interesting ways to expand on PBIS. So super excited about it. If we can jump on down here to slide number 6, our intervention support team. Our administrative team, as you already know, Ms. Rodriguez is our principal. Mr. Salazar is our main assistant principal, who's also our discipline coordinator. So God forbid we have a kiddo that ends up having to have a DAEP hearing. Mr. Salazar is kind of the one who plays the judge, jury, and we won't say executioner, but the one who hears all the facts. I'm the other assistant principal here, so I'm usually the one that's going to be presenting on behalf of the district in those sort of hearings. And then our 2 counselors, we have Ms. Garza and Ms. Tijerina. Ms. Garza will be our 5th grade counselor, Ms. Tijerina our 6th grade counselor. But again, they do kind of trade off and switch hats on that as we go through, and our kiddos may need help and if someone's not available. So if we can then jump on down here real quick, I want you to look at slide number 13. That's 1-3. And Ms. Rodriguez, if you can do me a favor, if you mind unmuting your microphone and reading the quote that's on there, please.
Yes, sir. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach or punish.
And so this is something, you know, when I ran across this last year, putting together a presentation, just really jumped out at me. We always talk about teaching in the context of our 4 content areas. But again, we have to keep in mind, even though we're dealing with preteens or tweens, as we like to say now, they're still kids. They're going to act like 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. And part of that behavior, they're still malleable. So it's our responsibility, even if you're not just their homeroom teacher and you're one of our teacher leaders on campus and you see someone acting silly as they're walking by and it's not directly one of your quote unquote students, we still need to teach them. It's not, you know, hammer down, you know what, you were playing around, we're going to be going to the office. We need to make sure it's a teachable moment to make sure our kiddos improve. All right. So if y'all mind jumping back up here real quick to slide number 7, it should be titled, What Are Our Expectations? Now you'll see here we have a basic direction on grab a box and enter an idea. So this is kind of a little bit geared more towards our staff who's already been with us. So if you want to grab a text box, click on it, and then put in what our expectations are for the campus. Hint, hint, there's 3. Or I should say 3 big ones. And if you already see you want to be a good digital citizen, if you see one of our fellow educators already has one of the text boxes, go ahead and let them enter. We don't want to be deleting. We understand right now it may be an accident, but we want to share this virtual space. So as you're still wrapping up on here, one of the first ones that jumped out to me was Miss Stoner. You mind unmuting real quick, Miss Stoner, and sharing what you had typed in?
I had typed in be respectful, and that just goes back to having mutual respect. If there's an issue with behavior, take it outside the classroom, have a private discussion. Don't punish them in front of everybody, and give them some fair consequences.
Awesome, excellent example. If we're all in agreement with that, if you can give me a thumbs up in your camera, please. Perfect, perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and if we can, let's jump on down to slide number 8. And so discipline is the actions parents and teachers take to increase student success. So we have 2 different little bubbles here, and no, they're not really overlapping like a Venn diagram. That's intentional. But we have a prevention side and we have a reaction side. So we got to think proactive and reactive. Now, to make it a lot less stressful for us, we want to be as proactive as possible. So I'm going to call on someone here, Ms. Bustamante. If you'll see on the prevention circle, we have a text box. You mind clicking on that and typing in an idea that you may think on what's a way that we can be preventative when it comes to discipline? And then Ms. Hernandez, if you would click on the reaction circle, and there's a text box there. And if you can pop in and type in an answer on one way that discipline can be reactionary or reactive, please. All right, excellent. So Ms. Bustamante, if you mind unmuting your mic and sharing out with us what you typed in on the preventative side.
To remind students each day of of our expectations and the roles of Fabulous Flores.
Awesome. And that's so crucial. You know, I know for those of you who are, you know, fortunate enough to have the opportunity actually to go to some of the district training, I remember they always talked about, you know, kids need regular reminders. So we want to make sure when we come into the classroom, be it in person or now virtually, we front end load it. But a lot of our kiddos still need those frequent reminders. Definitely after a holiday break, you know, so when we come back from our fall break or Christmas break or spring break, we need to be reminding them of what it is. But also we have to keep in mind, just like we talk about in reading levels, and we have kids that are different, you know, different levels, same thing on the behavior side. So an extended break for some kids might be a 3-day holiday weekend, might be a traditional 2-day weekend, might be that 30-minute lunch/recess period to where, you know, they come back in, they need that quick reminder. So it's not necessarily about browbeating them about it, but just that quick reminder. And then, like so many of you do an excellent job of just kind of threading in and doing those pre-minders throughout your lesson as, you know, kind of a cue to remind them on what our expectations are. So thank you, Ms. Bustamante. Switching gears on the reaction side, Ms. Hernandez, can you share out with everyone and unmute your mic on what you typed in, please?
Yeah, I typed in one-on-one conversations because that's kind of like before you go into the actual like discipline things, like you want to have the conversation, private conversation as to what they're doing and then redirect them what could be done instead of like blowing it out of proportion or something.
Awesome. That's a very good answer. And I'm glad that you put that in there because it's an important distinction to think of. Because I know when I was working on this slide presentation, one of the things I was, you know, we always get caught up in being kind of myopic and looking at through our lens. And so we often think about reaction is like, okay, the kids are already in the office. What are we administrators, you know, Mr. Salazar, Ms. Rodriguez, or myself doing with the kiddos? But again, you know, the one-on-one conference within the classroom is a great example of what the teachers can do. Kind of think about your locus of control, everyone, particularly new teachers, on what it is that you can do. Really, you know, sending the kid to the office unless it's a level 3 type behavior, you know, where it's harm to self, harm to others, or destruction of property, really should be kind of the nuclear option, you know, as much as possible. And definitely, like I said, for our new teachers, talk to your mentors, talk to your veteran neighbors on what are some of the different little tips, tricks, life hacks, if you will, on what they do to make sure that it's handled in-house. You know, the simple analogy that we all can really understand is you don't want to have that situation where, you know, mom gets after the kid and, you know, tells him, you know what, you're going to be grounded. There's no TV or no tablet for the rest of the evening. Dad comes home from work and Junior runs over, Dad, you know, mom, you know, got after me and, you know, undermined, and that other parent undermines or has to come down as the heavy. As much as possible, can you handle it in the classroom first and foremost before you call for that counselor, before you call for the administrator, because you don't want to undermine yourself and try to push that off on the other person, because then the students are going to start realizing, you know what, you know, Mr. Pettis, he may be the teacher in the classroom, but he's not the authoritarian figure as far as what he says goes as far as reasonable expectations. So if we all can jump on down to slide number 9, we have a school-wide system for student success here. So I want us to just take a few seconds to kind of look at it. And we see on the left side of the graphic, we have academic systems, and then on the right side, we're talking about behavior systems. So often, and I know like Ms. Rodriguez mentioned in the previous presentation with Jamie Goodwin about RTI. So that's what we're kind of talking about on the academic system side. So that's something we constantly talk about and want to keep at the forefront. And so we see, you know, we have the red little portion of the triangle, the yellow portion, and the green. So I want you all, like I said, take about 10-15 seconds, think about the academic side. What do you think? And some of you should be familiar with this graphic. What does that green represent? What does that yellow represent? And then ultimately up at that top, that thin little sliver, what does that red represent? All right. And if we can go ahead and type in, whoever the first 3 people are to grab those text boxes, go ahead and start typing in. Awesome. So as we get rolling here, and I have Mr. Diaz adding in here. Ms. Hill, can you do me a favor and unmute your mic and share out with everyone what you mean by your entry there for the green section?
I'm assuming that universal intervention means all students are on board with our system. All students are proactive with the system. And
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
that's it.
All right, you're absolutely right. We're thinking universal. So on the academic side here, because we're looking at the left side, we're talking about tier 1 instruction. So this is, our grade level content that's aligned with our state standards. It's provided to everyone, regardless if they have an IEP, 504 plan, or they have an individualized acceleration plan. This is the baseline that everyone's going to be getting. And I apologize, I didn't see who had entered in the text box for yellow. Whoever that
It was
was.
me, Mr. Perez.
Okay.
So the yellow basically is the tier 2 instruction, which will be the small group intervention, whether it's the teacher, pulling them aside, or classes such as Read 180 or System 44.
Awesome, excellent example. So now, quick distinction, and this is to kind of bring our new teachers up to speed here. So like Ms. Hill pointed out, universal instruction, boom, that's everyone. That universal instruction should be taking care of 80% of the kiddos. Now, we are going to have some that are still going to be struggling, so that comes down to what Ms. Arroyo was just sharing with us. And so do you remember roughly about what percentage we should be hitting or being able to catch up with us there in that tier 2 or that yellow band, ma'am?
About 5 to 10%.
Give or take, yes. Different models, but yeah, you're kind of looking 10, maybe even upwards of 15%. And then that brings us to the tip of the iceberg, if you will. Oh, and someone's jumping ahead of me here. You can hold on, Mr. Hernandez. Thank you, ma'am. And I believe it was Mr. Diaz who had entered in the red on the academic side. If that was you, sir, if you mind unmuting and sharing what you mean by this severe intervention.
This is our students who are really, really, really low. These are students that are going to need some more interventions on top of whole group stuff, your small group stuff, but they're also going to need, after school tutoring. They're also going to need some personal, maybe even some type of accommodations, some RTI recommendations, things like that. As many things as we can find to help them improve.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Diaz, you're spot on there. In a perfect world, that red portion of the triangle should account for about what percentage of our student body?
I don't know, maybe 5%, 10%.
It should be about 5%. Ideally, if you can get that down to about 3%, you're really rocking and rolling and you have a streamlined system. So again, looking at this here, red should be about 5%. Your yellow band should be about 15%, and then your green is your 80% there. So now flipping on over on the right side here on the behavior systems, because again, it's pretty easy for us to understand on the academic sides and tiers, but if I can have 3 people who jump in and kind of put in some information on the text boxes on the right side for behavior systems, please. Ms. Bradfield, I like what you put, but I'm going to ask, delete the question mark. We're going to be confident here. We have any brave souls for the yellow band? All right, so while we're typing and finish up, Ms. Bradfield, can you share with us and unmute your mic on what you had for the baseline part for the behavioral systems?
Yes, sir. I'm just making the assumption that if we're considering this as in regards to percentages, I would like to see 80 to 90% of student population be able to follow procedures and expectations.
You're absolutely 100% correct.
Thank
So
you.
basically our, when we think of our basic expectations, same things like our tier 1 instruction, we're going to present that out to everyone. We want them all to have an equal opportunity to be, knowledgeable of what those expectations are, but we understand not 100% of our kids are going to be able to meet that expectation. They may, be one of the younger kiddos in your classroom or on campus. Developmentally, they might be, as we used to say in the pre-K world, one of our Leo, the late bloomers. I was one of them, so, I'm not throwing shade at anyone, but we need a baseline that's shared out with everyone. So then that takes us up to the second part, and I apologize, I didn't see who had clicked in and added SDR marks. If you mind unmuting and sharing out.
On the yellow, I put, that would be when a student you've already given the warnings to, and then you make a mark in the SDR book, and hopefully they won't continue to make that mistake again.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Renfro. And I believe it was Miss Sam who put in on the top one about office referrals.
Yes, sir. Those would be hopefully the very few students that repetitive offenders, repeat offenders, that either have to go to ISS, DATA, or expels.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Miss Sam. Now I want y'all to stop for a quick second here. And let's look at the right side, and we're going to compare to the left side. So the academic versus behavior. We talked about what we can do to help essentially in the academic side. We're talking about tier 1 instruction, then we move up to the tier 2, which we talked about small group, and then Mr. Diaz shared, the red is this severe intervention, maybe one-on-one support, maybe extra tutorials, all perfect exemplars. Now jumping over on the right side, behavior systems, we had Ms. Bradfield share with us, procedures and expectations presented to everyone. So that's great. Now remember, if we come on back here real quick to slide 8, we talked about there's 2 different components, so prevention and reaction. So Ms. Bradfield really kind of hit with us on the prevention side, that we're already kind of giving out the pre-minder, letting them know what we want beforehand. Our other 2 examples, we're kind of talking a little bit more after the fact. So can we come up with any ideas for the yellow and the red portion? They're talking about the right amount, because again, we got to think about that 80, 15, and 5% breakdown. But what are some things proactively we might be able to do in the classroom to help out that 15%, or that we have as procedures on our campus to help that last 5%? Because I'll be honest with you, we want to make sure, like for the example, the DAP kiddos, we want to keep them here. If you're not familiar, there's a ton of research where they talk about the school to prison pipeline. And, if you have a kiddo that ends up in DAP, the chance of them not completing school and ending up in the legal system exponentially increases. And each time that they go back and there's a higher recidivism rate on the DAP side, greater likelihood that they are going to end up in prison. So we want to figure out what are some things that we can do. I see someone typed in referral to a counselor outside. Excellent answer.
Meet their academic needs. A lot of times students misbehave because they can't read or write. They're embarrassed, so they act out. But also too are very smart, high students. If we're not meeting their needs and challenging them, then they're going to act out as well.
Absolutely, very valid point. Thank you, Ms. Bustamante. So we're talking about, it's 2 sides of the coin, but keep in mind, it is one coin. So excellent observation. And then Ms. Renfro, was that you that edited your previous response?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so we had to continue to remind. The other thing that kind of jumped, to my mind is we do have some kiddos that have a behavior contract or behavior intervention plan. So it might be where it's set up that, their mentor comes in and checks in with them. It may be, Ms. Trevino or Ms. Partida coming in, to check with them, not necessarily as a punitive side, but they want to come in, if we know a kiddo's struggling with transitions and they're really successful in the classroom environment because, you're an awesome teacher, you have it, on lock, everything's in order, and they thrive in that structure. But man, when I transition on out to the cafeteria for lunch, that's just hard to keep my hands to myself. So Miss Partida may, swing in there and, remind, hey, Brian, you remember, how we doing? Okay, I'm doing good. I had a great morning. Okay, remember when we're walking in line, our hands are to ourselves. We're not touching our neighbors and things of that nature. All right. So excellent, excellent examples. I thank you all for that. And if we can now jump on down here and just to kind of verify to make sure we were on the right track, if we can jump on down to slide number 34, that's 3-4, way down at the bottom. So this was shared out by, and this is the unedited graphic and what it looks like from the PBIS world. So we talked about that 80 to 90% being served down here with the universal interventions or supports, again, our tier 1 supports, or as Ms. Bradfield shared out on the behavior side, our different expectations that everyone are exposed to. Jumping up to the next tier, that 5 to 10, which is on the academic side, we're discussing our tier 2 supports, small group interventions. On the other side here, same thing. You're looking at small group. You might be, counseling with the kiddos within your classroom, the one-on-one conferences like Ms. Hernandez mentioned earlier. Then jumping up here to the top, academic side, that's the real intensive stuff like Mr. Diaz mentioned. Those tutorials, the one-on-one, the after-school stuff or before school. And then on the behavior side, we're looking at the more intensive things. They might have Ms. Trevino working with them on social skills and whatnot. So do we have any questions about that? If we're doing good, can you show me a thumbs up? If we're kind of like, fuzzy, middle thumb. All right, we're seeing a lot of thumbs up. Excellent, excellent. So if we can, at this point, come scroll up, if you would, to number 10, slide 10, 10. And I want you all, and again, we don't have enough text boxes for everyone, so if you kind of grab one, why would you want this? Why would this be important to have, not only on the campus, but in your classroom? We'll give you all about 30 seconds. All right, 10 seconds. All right, if I can, Coach Flores, would you mind unmuting and sharing out with everyone what you had on there?
To keep the students, hold them accountable for their actions.
Absolutely. I see also Ms. Warrington had shared out the same thing. Ms. Warrington, why is it important to have the kids held accountable?
All right, am I unmuted?
We hear you, ma'am.
Perfect. Okay. So yes, if you have these systems in place there and you model and you teach and you reteach and they're posted and they're campus-wide expectations, and students have to be accountable for this. I mean, there's really no excuse for that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And I appreciate, Ms. Warrington, that you talked about and started with modeling. That is absolutely crucial. As we talked about in the previous thing, Ms. Goodwin talked about how many of us are turning into our parents. I hate to say it, I am, not only because of the receding hairline, but the different habits, but it's because of what was modeled for us. Same thing for our kiddos. So we know some of the kids that have the most challenging behavior that we see in the classroom. One of the best quotes, old nurse of ours at Anthem had shared out and had taped it all over. The most challenging kids and the ones that are hardest to love are the ones who need it the most. So we need to model for them because we don't know really what they may be coming to school, what that home life is. So it's extra crucial that we do exactly what Ms. Warrington said, that we model for them that good behavior, that we're not just modeling good academic type behaviors and skill sets, but we're talking about how to be respectful, how we're being kind, how we need to be safe, not just explicitly telling them, but showing them in the little things that we do, not replying back with like a snarky comment or things like that. So excellent example. The other thing too, I want to point out, thank you, Coach Flores and Ms. Warrington, is on the accountability side, think back to our training last week. We talked about student agency and touched on it. more and more we need to look at, these life skills, and we talked about also in the Region 20 training. What is it we need to do? We need to think about that college, career, military readiness. And I know we're thinking here, oh my gosh, okay, we're dealing with 10 through 12-year-olds. Do we really need to be talking about that? Yes, we do. Because what we do here helps set them up for success at the junior high, which helps set them up for success at the high school. And if they know how to hold themselves accountable and they start taking ownership of not only their behavior, but the academic side, those are the skills where they're going to learn about, okay, I may not be perfect or may not be the best choice that I made when we're talking on the behavior side, but what am I doing to improve? What am I going to do so if I'm faced with the same dilemma or the same situation, I don't give in to temptation. I know what the right and respectful and safe choice is going to be. So thank you. All right, if we can then jump on down here to, actually, I apologize. If we can come on up to number 7. So what are our expectations? So we had talked about here, walk quietly in line, being respectful, responsible. I had some other examples here, treat others with respect. Again, explicitly come into it. The 3 that we talk about in the broadest context of our district is being respectful, being responsible, being safe. Now, for our new teachers who may not know this, we're a little bit unique district in how we're level campuses, where our kiddos are at one campus for 2 years and switch over. So the broad global concept or expectations are those 3 things, but each campus does put a little bit of different spin on them. But overall, it does come back to those 3 things. The reason why it's anchored around those 3 is we do have a lot of families that have multiple kiddos, and they're obviously not at the same campus because we're not neighborhood schools. So that way we can have the parents kind of partner up with us, and so they can reemphasize, regardless, if they're at Rob where it's Rob Rocks, or they come over here where it's Fabulous Florida, is that there's 3 basics expectations that we want to anchor those around. All right. So if we want to jump on down here to number 14. So let's start thinking about this in the context, and this is going to be a little bit easier. So I know if my new teachers are kind of like, what does this look like? Here on slide 14, we're going to look at first in the context of being on campus. So for our teachers who have been with us before, being safe, we talked about walking to your destination, hands, feet, books, and objects to yourself. If you want to, grab a text box and enter in a couple different examples of what being safe would look like here at Florida's on campus, be it in your classroom, common areas, wherever. I apologize if you hear a beeping. I think there's a commercial vehicle backing up, and I don't know if it's coming through or not, but it's driving me crazy. All right, I appreciate y'all entering. We're going to come on back here. So I see I had Mr. Christian Diaz and also Ms. Hernandez shared about wearing a mask. Absolutely crucial. Not only is it about that we don't want to get other people's germs, but who knows what we're carrying. So absolutely. Mr. Valadez, can you share out what you had, sir?
Sorry, I got to unmute. My box was stolen, but no, I was just gonna say, just be aware of what's around you and listen to adult instructions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with that, the 6 feet apart. So think about it. This is new territory for us. We're going to have kids back with us here in a month, but we want to make sure that they're as safe as possible, not only for themselves, but you, and then trickle down effect for your family. So again, coming back to, Ms. Rodriguez was very emphatic. We need to have those 6-foot markers spread out, because when we're out on the sidewalks, normally it is more of an unstructured environment while we're transitioning. So we want to do what we can preactively. But again, another great example, listening to adults in instruction, 6 feet apart, wearing the mask. Excellent, excellent. Now I want you to drop on down to the next slide, 15. And if you can grab a text box, let's think of what can we do or convey to our kiddos that's going to be meeting with us virtually, and how can we be safe online? What might that look like? What might it sound like? We'll give you all about 30 seconds. Uh-oh, someone jumped ahead on us. All right, I'm going to ask you all to stop right here real quick. We had a little technical issue and kind of sharing out space on here. So I'm going to, real quick, if we can all pause back, come on back here and check in with me on the camera. Someone, and totally know we're learning this, accidentally clicked and changed the slide on us. But I did see a couple good examples beforehand. Mr. Martin, do you mind sharing out what you had? You were entering in on the bottom right box on one way we could be safe online.
I was just going to kind of mention, be aware of what you're sharing online. Don't put too much personal information out there.
Excellent. That is so crucial, and that's kind of a two-pronged one. Not only for us teachers, to be careful, but also conveying that message to our students. These kiddos are growing up with social media, and it's becoming more, as I jokingly call it, anti-social media. Miss DeLeon, I've seen pop up in the text box, and unfortunately, she's on a computer without a camera or mic. But digital citizenship, and that is so crucial. Kids need to understand what I put out there, in the web and the virtual world, the internet, however you wish to call it. It stays out there. A lot of people don't realize this, but they're like, oh, well, I put out that TikTok and then I deleted it after, I called so-and-so, every name in the book and this, that, and the other. And so it's gone. No, it's not, because you know what? That other person screenshotted it. A lot of people, and here's something real scary. We always talk about Big Brother's watching. A lot of people don't realize this. Way back with the passing of the Patriot Act. So a little fun fact for you. One of the things that the government did, a lot of people didn't realize this, they contracted Google to set up, and they have these huge warehouses all over, most of them are in California, where they have computer servers that are set up to that automatically, they capture different websites and snapshots, like Facebook, Instagram, different social media accounts, and tracking traffic. The whole original guise of this is we want to be able to track terrorists. We want to be able to be ahead of them because we don't want anything horrific like, the Oklahoma City issue or 9/11 happening again. Totally understand that. However, there was a little bit of loophole in this. So of course, it's obvious you want to go to Google because their hands are in everything when it comes to the internet, but they weren't really restricted on what they could do with that information. So they ended up figuring out this is also another revenue stream for them. So a lot of people don't realize this, and I convey to our kiddos that we come and talk to, they're putting, this different garbage and social media and trashing each other. Google was turning around and selling snapshots of these to different employers. So say I work for General Electric, and I need to fill a sales position in San Antonio to sell my locomotives, and I'm looking through a candidate, and I want to find out, okay, I'm narrowed down to these 5 candidates. They could go and contact Google and for a fee pay and say, I'm listed, I'm down to these 5 people. What can you show me in their virtual history that they've done? Because I want to make sure I have the best person out representing me, and I don't want to be blindsided. Someone coming out of left field that, had posted, racist things or inappropriate things like that. And so it ended up being a huge revenue stream for Google. So that's something to think about and convey to your kiddos when they're posting things. Well, I deleted it. It's never virtually gone. Someone, somewhere has it and is waiting to use it. So we want to be careful of that, all right? So if we can then, let's go ahead at this point here. We have on 15, someone kind of helped me out here and brought in the checkpoint. If you all mind clicking on the Google form, and again, there's a simple answer on there on what we're going to do, and I'll kind of give you a hint. We have these expectations because ultimately we don't want to be living in a zoo. We want to make sure our kiddos are not acting like what? All right, give you about 10 more seconds to finish entering in your wonderful answers. I see some good ones here. So, Ms. Presley, or excuse me, Mrs. Kerbo, if you can do me a favor and unmute your mic and share with us what you had.
A bunch of monkeys.
A bunch of monkeys. Yes, that's what I used to always tell my kiddos when I was in the classroom. We don't want to be acting like a bunch of filthy little monkeys and being silly and crazy and wild. Monkeys are fun to watch at the zoo or on Nat Geo, but we're not going to be acting like them. Excellent. And let's see who else. Ms. Enriquez, if you mind unmuting and sharing what you had shared out.
Yeah, I put not acting like a bunch of animals.
Yes. And for those of us who are a little bit older, we're not talking about the 60s rock band, although they're one of my favorites. I know I'm dating myself. I grew up on oldies music because of my parents. God bless them. All right, if y'all, thank you very much for sharing out. If you mind coming and dropping down to slide number 17, that's 17. And we have being respectful online. Same kind of thing. We've talked about before on kind of thinking about on the previous slide here, 16, being respectful is examples being courteous, being kind, using appropriate voice levels. But I want us to think about in the online context, because again, our kiddos are coming to us virtually, all of them the first 4 weeks. And after that, some of them are still going to be reaching us that way. All right. First one in the top left box, I love, 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 and I'm going to answer for Ms. Sutherland because I don't believe she has a microphone. But she had wait your turn to answer. Super crucial. We need to understand about taking turns. Well, we had a couple of different people about muting yourself. Is that Ms. Rodriguez? Why is it important that we mute ourselves?
No, that wasn't me, but I thought this is a great excellent at reminding ourselves to do this. Oh.
And it's true. It's one of those things, and this comes back to what Ms. DeLeon mentioned on the previous slide. It's about digital citizenship. In the classroom, we're not going to have kids yelling over on top of each other and, miss, no. You're going to have chaos. It's the same thing. It's not that we don't want to hear your lovely voices, because I'm sure you all can sing a lot better than I can, but it's being respectful and then cutting out that background noise. Because again, we're going to have people coming from all different places and trying to connect. And so we all have our open mics open. It's going to have a lot of backfeed and just kind of, be harsh. All right. Someone put in here appropriate language. That is crucial. Who shared that? If you mind unmuting.
That was me, Mr. Pettis, Mrs. Chase. Just appropriate language is something I think that a lot of students need to practice on a regular basis, but especially towards each other, and just reminding them that that's an expectation with regard to how they speak to each other as well as to their teacher.
Absolutely. Super, super crucial. So a lot of good different answers here. Thank you all for participating. Thank you, Ms. Chase and Mrs. Rodriguez. Appreciate it. So we are going to look and jump on down here to slide 18.18. So we have what we call an expectations matrix. So again, this is something that we have posted in a few select areas, plus it's also in our PBIS handbook. We'll share that out eventually with you all digitally. We're going to make a few tweaks in there because of COVID-19. But we have different expectations where we talk about being respectful, being responsible, being safe in the classrooms, restrooms, recess and break time, hallway, the cafeteria, different areas, definitely assemblies and activities. And the last one that's super crucial, the bus. We do have a lot of kiddos that ride the bus, and we need to think about it's basically a mobile classroom. Although what complicates that more is our little monkeys that we're trying to shape and mold to be nice, civilized people are on the bus with our little monkeys that range from age 4 and 5 at Dalton, meaning they're with my personal little monkey rider, all the way up to our kids being the oldest one. So there's a lot of temptation there to make some choices that aren't necessarily the best things. So we need to make sure when we have them here, be it in person for that 7 to 8 hours or virtually, we're constantly doing those pre-minders on what it is they need to do. That way, when they do get sent out on the bus or out in the public, I used to tell my kiddos, if I'm shopping in Walmart or I'm in HEB, I don't want to walk around the aisle and I see one of you just acting absolutely crazy silly, because you know what? Not only is that a reflection of your parents, That's a reflection of me and Miss Sierra, who is my assistant, because we're with you more waking hours than your parents are. So again, we need to remind them beyond the classroom, this is how a citizen acts. This is how we use appropriate language. This is how we take turns. This is how, we want to model these soft skills. So excellent. All right. And so we want to jump on down here, shifting to number 20. So we talk about being responsible, again, the context of here on campus. So if I can have Mr. Salazar, you mind unmuting and reading what we have on slide 20 for being responsible and what it may look like here on campus?
Slide 20. Be on time every day. Use appropriate language, volume. Take care of school items such as computers. Have all materials ready for class, and reporting inappropriate behavior.
Awesome. And sir, if you're going to say one of these is more crucial than another, what one would you say is the most important on this list?
Number 1.
Absolutely, I would agree. Because if they're not here, we're missing what?
We're missing the instruction. We're missing the
Absolutely.
potatoes.
Absolutely. Go on and preach. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Sir.
If y'all mind dropping down to slide 21, same thing. Let's take about 30 seconds, grab a text box. Let's put in some ideas on what being responsible online or digitally may look like. And again, some of these may overlap. We see that, in the real world when we're talking about them here on campus, that they may overlap. So it's not so absolutely crucial when you have that teachable moment. Do I tell them it's being respectful or do I tell them it's being responsible? It's basically just coming back to anchoring to one of these main things. About 10 more seconds. So looking here, and I'm going to answer because I don't believe Ms. Partida has a microphone, but she had login on time. Super crucial, absolutely. Good counterpart to the being on time. I apologize. I don't see who entered in on the bottom right box. Whoever had turning in assignments, if you can share that, unmute your mic and share why that's important.
That was me, Mrs. Alanis. I just think it's important for them to turn in their assignments on time just because I know during the spring, whenever we had like a bunch of late assignments coming in, it got very complicated and hectic to grade everything. I mean, it's okay if it happens, be flexible if it happens here and there, that's fine. But if we're all doing it, it does get overwhelming for the teacher.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Alanis. And I appreciate that you talk about, kind of having a balanced approach to it. There might be some extenuating circumstances. Think back to the previous training we had with Region 20 and that TED Talk where the guy mentioned about the girl would do the homework in the bathroom, but they didn't have electricity. It's being cognizant that there's different things that may be impacting our kiddos, but yes, it is crucial as much as possible so you don't get overloaded on trying to grade these things. So excellent. I apologize. I didn't see who put in this one here, middle row, second one down, contribution to lesson. Whoever that was, if you mind unmuting and sharing out, please.
Yes, it was me, Ms. Bustamante. Contributing to the lesson, I know some students, we don't like to verbally share, but if they were to contribute in the chat box or to send a picture of anything that happens that day.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Bustamante. Perfect, perfect. So again, great examples, I'm sure, and I apologize, we just have space for a few text boxes, so I'm sure there's some of you who are thinking of some outstanding things that we did not fit on here, but that's all right. So again, if we want to pop up here, again, we had already kind of touched on slide number 19, our expectation matrix. This is specifically what it looks like, but again, we're going to be modifying this because not all of our kids are going to be here physically, but you'll see what it looks like. Again, we do have more things in the basic respect, responsibility, and safety. We also talk about the piece which comes back to being respectful, using appropriate voice levels, but it's also being responsible, knowing where you're at and what is appropriate. And again, we cover for the restroom, hallways, the different various common areas, and again, also our classroom. All right. And so if we can jump on down here to slide number 23. So here's what we're going to do. I'll give a couple seconds to make sure everyone's on 23. No jumping ahead, everyone. So we're now going to do a little small group talk exercise. So what our task is going to be, you're going to have 3 minutes. We'll give a few extra seconds here. We're going to have you go to your meeting link. Now, before you panic where it is, it's on the next slide. Don't go there yet. Please make sure we're tuned into what I'm sharing. You're going to go to your meeting link, and how you'll know what your group is based on who you meet with on your PLC with. So, PE and rotation, they're going to be grouped together. 5th grade ELAR is going to be grouped together, so on and so forth. So you'll see. There's going to be 2 links after your PLC title. The first one is going to be a Google Meet link. Do not close down this one here. Do not close down this tab. Leave it open. But you're going to click on the meeting link next to your PLC group. It's going to open up another window. That way you can talk with your peers within your group. The second link on slide 24 is to a shared Google Doc. You all should have access to it. There's specific instructions. You want to put your name in one of the text boxes. What you're going to do, now listen carefully, because this is not just a simple thing. What we're going to do is I want you all within your group to go back to the different slides where we had about being responsible online, being respectful online, being safe online. And I want you to look at them, and your group has to agree on 3 of them. They may all be from the same, all under being responsible, maybe one from each one. It's up to you. But you're going to not only pull those 3 in on that shared document, you need to rank them. All right? Then after you rank these 3 and you've put them in on your shared document, you need to pick someone, because when we come back here at the end of the 3 minutes, we're going to call on you to share out what your group picked as your most important one out of those 3. All right? So come with me right now. I'm going to show you real quick. Slide 24. We have a broke down on your PLC groups. So the first one you're going to click on would be for your meeting link. Again, don't close out of this one. Your second link under your name is going to be for your document that you're going to be working on together. So what it would look like if you're looking at my screen that I'm presenting and sharing out with you all, as my computer slowly grinds away. Mr. Rodriguez, I need a new computer. This one's getting slow. Just kidding. All right. So it has the title on here. What your group is. You're going to put your name in one of the text boxes here. Then you're going to copy and paste from our PowerPoint what one of the 3 different things are that's super important that your group values 1, 2, and 3. And then you'll have to select someone to share out for your group, and they're going to have to share out why number 1 is your group's number 1. All right? So if we understand that, can you show me in the screen thumbs up? All right, so we're going to have 3 minutes. So I'm showing 3:30 on the dot right now. At 3:33, we are going to come on back to this tab, which is our PBIS training tab. Don't close it out. Just leave this mic muted for this meeting, and then you can unmute when you get to your breakout sessions. 1, 2, 3, go and have fun.
We're not done yet.
Mr. Perez?
I see a lot of great conversations going on, everyone. We're going to go ahead and extend it to 3:36 before we need to come back to the main meeting, because we had one group that got held up. There's a little snag. So we'll come back together at 3:36. Thank you. All right, everyone, on the main one, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to come back at 3:39. I did not release one of the documents to our 5th grade math and science group, and so they got held up by me. So I apologize. So if you all just hang tight, and then we'll come back together to the main meeting link at 3:39. One-minute warning. All right, we have at 3:39. I know some of you may not be done, and I've heard some awesome conversations, but if you can, go ahead, close out your other meeting tabs and come on back to the main one. Again, close out your meeting tabs. And as we come back here to the main meeting tab, I should still be presenting. And if you can show me a thumbs up on your camera, I should be showing you the 6th grade math and science ranking sheet. Do y'all see that? Awesome. All right. So for that PLC group, who is our brave person that was voluntold to be the speaker?
I was voluntold.
All right. If you mind sharing out what were your 3, in what order, and why did you choose that order?
We agreed on be on time, be respectful, and staying on task. Number 1, being on time, because if we're not here, nothing else is going to occur.
Absolutely. I agree 110% with that, Ms. Stockel. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If we can jump on over 5th grade ELAR ranking group. I'm glad that you left my name there and give me credit for this great work. Who's our brave representative?
I'm going to be doing the speaking part on this.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz.
After many, many, many years of research and scientific study.
I love it. You already have my interest. Go on.
Being on time is essential because if they're not on time, the students will miss out on the flow of the lesson.
So very true. And what is the first thing that we should be doing to kick off and get that wave rolling for that flow, sir?
Can you repeat that one more time?
What is it that we should be doing and starting our lesson off with to get that wave and flow rolling? Hint, fundamental 5. Fundamental 5.
We should be doing our objective, reaching out, getting our objective, and capturing, even looking at the poll, we should be capturing their attention with that objective. So that way they're already intrigued to know what's going on next.
Absolutely. Thank you for weaving the two together. You're absolutely correct. We should be going over our lesson frame. And with the context of the instructional paw print, it's the captivate portion. And again, I always tell my teachers, it's not just, okay, I start my lesson, with the lesson frame and that's it. If you see that you have a kiddo that's struggling with that, remind them what that lesson frame is. Again, combine it with the power zone, call on someone else. Hey, can you go back and remind us what our lesson frame and what the objective is for today? Because if you see one kid struggling and losing focus, you know what? More than likely, there's more than one. All right, so thank you, Mr. Diaz. If we can jump over to your math and science counterpart in 5th grade, and who's our representative there?
We, as you can see, we didn't have time.
That's my fault too. You just throw something out there. Go for it, Ms. Bustamante.
Yeah, I see our number 1 is be respectful, be responsible, be safe. Why did we select that as our number 1? Be responsible, because being on time, being safe, and being respectful are components of being responsible.
I like that. That's some deep thinking, and that is true. And that's what we talk about. They kind of overlap. So for our new teachers, if you get to the point where you have a teachable moment to bring a kiddo back in, don't get caught up on, oh my gosh, do I say it's respectful or responsible? You know what? That's important, but not so much as important on telling them, you know what? This is an opportunity for you to learn and grow. You were faced with at this crossroads. You could have chosen this, you could have chosen this, and this is what you chose. Maybe not the best thing. Let's learn and let's grow from it. So thank you very much. And again, I apologize to that group. That was my fault in not sharing the correct settings for them. And so with that, we're going to come on back here to our slide deck. So I want everyone, we should be looking at slide number 24, which had all of our wonderful links. So if you're all with me, show me in your cameras that we have a thumbs up, please. Wrong finger, Mr. Salazar. I'm kidding. He gave me a thumbs up for those of you who don't have him on the screen. All right, if we can jump on down here. I apologize. I forgot to add on here and share with you all earlier. We had a virtual parking lot on here. So as we're coming out and kind of wrapping this up, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, come in, grab a text box, put a question, what your question is there, and then we will come back and answer before we close out. All right. So I apologize. That was my mistake. That's on slide 35. If you're rocking and rolling and have no questions yet, go ahead and leave it blank. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, we've been here too long and I wish I was the guy here with the whip going after Mr. Pettis because I'm, about had it, totally understand. We're going to speed up here. All right, so if you can come back up with me to slide 25, that's 25. It should be titled Guiding Principles. Again, slide 25. And Miss Dillard, can you do me a favor, please, if you mind unmuting your mic and sharing with us what the different bullets are under the guiding principles of PBIS?
Okay, all students are valuable and deserve respect. All students can be taught to demonstrate appropriate behavior. Next bullet is punishment does not work to change behavior. And last is school climate is a shared responsibility among administrators, teachers, staff, students, and families.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ms. Dillard. And I'd almost say on that last bullet, probably should have been reversed. This was directly imported in from a PBIS World presentation. I would almost say it would be families, then teachers, or families, students, teachers, staff, then administrators, because again, you guys in the context of school, you're our frontline workers. You're the ones that are in the trenches with the kiddos day in, day out, modeling, instructing, not just academics, but the behavior side. And definitely, I think, have a higher priority in this context than we do. So I would argue the order, but we're all partners in this. So thank you very much, Ms. Dillard. If we can jump on down to the next slide, 26. If I can have Ms. Kendall, would you be so kind as to read the features of PBIS? And again, on this slide here, before she shares with us, this is not just with respect to, at Flores, and it's totally different everywhere else. This is a broad global concepts on PBIS. So, if we had a kiddo who came to us from, Catskill Mountains of New York and came to us, if their campus was using PBIS, it would still be centered around these. So, Ms. Kendall, if you can share out with us, please.
Sure. Clearly defined expectations, teaching component for behavior, reinforcing appropriate behavior, correcting problem behavior, interventions for challenging behaviors.
Awesome job. Thank you very much. Are we all in agreement with that? If so, can you give me 2 thumbs up in the screen? By the way, for our new teachers, if you want to set up awesome backdrops, Miss Kendall is our go-to YouTube design coordinator. Last spring, she had this really, cool backdrop. And if I remember correctly, you said your kiddos helped you with it, but it had different tool and lights. And it was very glam. So if you need some help on how to spruce up your physical backdrop for your videos, she's your go-to lady on that. All right. So real quick, jumping down here on our next slide 27, we have the referral form. So just a quick breakdown. Within our campus, we have 3 tiers of behavior. Tier 1 behavior is going to be a real minor infraction, should definitely be handled in the classroom. And when we think back to that pyramid, your basic reminder and expectations being presented out there should address most of those Tier 1 behaviors. Your Tier 2 stuff is the things that are a little bit more severe. Again, we're not to the point where we're going, 0 to 100 and sending them to the office to be, punished. But Tier 2 stuff is, maybe we were throwing something or engaging in horseplay with a classmate, and not an outright fight, where they're trying to, knock the sense out of each other. And again, on our forms, these are all spelled out. So as you go and see through it. Then our Tier 3 behavior, these are, the real severe things. This is where it's the point where you do need some additional support and backup, and that kiddo is going to be coming to the office. And again, I want you to keep in mind when we're talking about the Tier 3 behavior, because they're written up as a Tier 3 infraction and they're sent up here to the office and Mr. Salazar and I are talking with them and whatnot, unless within the student code of conduct it has that it's a mandatory placement in DAEP, Our goal is to keep the kids here on campus. So I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, this and this and this happened. I'm sitting in the office. I've had it. I'm done. And Mr. Salazar and Mr. Bettis, they're going to, look like WWE tag team partners and work this kid over. And then they're going to be sent on to DAP and they're out of my room and done. That's not the case unless it's a mandatory placement. We want to do everything that we can to use it as a teachable moment, even if it's a tier 3 behavior. What can we do to address it? What can we do to bring these kiddos back into your classroom and in a constructive fashion? And the other thing that we need to keep in mind when they do come back to your classroom, maybe it's the next day, maybe it's the same day in the afternoon. It depends on the infraction. You need to be professional, you need to be welcoming, and you need to be understanding that that kid comes back, then we're starting over and we're moving on from that. We cannot hold a grudge. If we hold a grudge, it's going to hold you back. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to be miserable. It's going to make the kid's life miserable. And then you just have this, quid pro quo back and forth, and no one wins in that. So we got to keep that in mind. And that's something that takes practice. So I don't want you to think, okay, Mr. Pettis is talking about this, he was doing it right away. No. This was something that, it took me a while when I was in the classroom to work on. And quite frankly, it's something I can say even as administrator, I still need to work on when I dude, Brian, you're back in my office again? So it's one of those things that we need to be cognizant of. Again, 3 entries in your SDR binder or the SDR form results in a referral to the office.
Mr. Bettis, I'm going to interject if you don't mind. Mr. Salazar and I were commenting on the sidebar because one of our most physical students the past 2 years, that's probably the student we're going to miss the most. His highs are real high, his lows are real lows. They're kids. So I just have to share that with you. He got,
yes,
even our counselors have had some to the face and such, but just great kids. We're the teachers for them. So now I'm not saying any of y'all need to get hit in the face or anything, but it's just most people wouldn't understand that your hardest students are going to be the ones that you remember the most, and all of your efforts in working with them. Thanks, y'all. Sorry. Great job, Mr. Pettis. Everybody, the feedback in the comments are all like, way to go. Everybody loves it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Robert. And that's true. We need to be
face.
Yeah, we need to be, handle it with grace. We need to be like the, Queen Elizabeth and just have that nice smile and come on back, come on back. So if y'all can drop down with me to slide number 28, that's 2.8, titled Incentives. And Ms. Himes, if you'd be so kind as to unmute your mic and share out what those bullet points are.
Incentives, specific incentives for behavior, specific incentives for attendance. These will include tangibles and events.
Absolutely, thank you. So I want you all to keep in mind, thank you, Ms. Himes, that when we talk about incentives, PBIS is not just about I give. It is coming back to the thing. Think back to that pyramid. We talked about, we had tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supports. And then the one where it wasn't the Venn diagram, but the pink and orange circles next to each other. What are we doing proactively beforehand so we're not having so many referrals, we're not having so many issues in the background? I see Ms. Rodriguez working on getting her steps there. But it is, incentives are a part of it, but I don't want you all to think or get fixated on that it's just about the incentives on there. And so part of that is, if you can come with me on down to slide number 29, schedule events. We're looking at having positive behavior incentives every 4 to 5 weeks, positive behavior event every 9 weeks, and we want to do an attendance celebration every 9 weeks. This is going to be tweaked a little bit because we were thrown a curveball with our kiddos coming back physically a month later than we're anticipating. So we need to get together with our committee and kind of come up with a different idea on how we're going to kind of do this. But the idea is that we should have a regular series of events to acknowledge our kiddos who are going above and beyond, not only behavior side, but attendance. I firmly believe that you reward them separately, because the kids who are your biggest turkey lurking in your classroom, I guarantee you're going to have perfect attendance. And the kiddos who are exemplary on the behavior side, they're probably not going to have, the perfect attendance on there. So we want to make sure that we address both aspects of that. And then if you can come on down here to slide 30 Class Dojo, we want to remind everyone, every teacher has an account. This is our main portal that we communicate with all of our parents. That was true even before COVID-19. It's up to you. You can share out your number and text, but we highly recommend that Class Dojo is that portal, because we don't want you at midnight being inundated with text messages from your kids and parents on what's going on and this, that, and the other. It's also another great way to track your behavior with the kiddos. You can reward them in points or take away points. One little hack that I did and had in the classroom, I love sharing out with people, is when I had my classroom, I would give the kids a point for being there, a second point for being on time, and a third point if they had turned in their homework. Not if it was correct or not, but if it was turned in. That way, if we had an issue that I needed to address, like a tier 1 behavior, and I had to take a point away, they weren't in the red. That way, I told the parents that meet the teacher, reminding them at open house, if your kiddo and you're checking in daily, which most of our parents are good about, if they're at 0, we're okay. If they have a day where they end up in the negative, because again, you should be given points to reward when they're doing something good. I'm not going to worry on day 1 that they're in the red or negative in points. Day 2, they're coming up on my radar, because again, we'll have bad days, even us as adults. If I have a kiddo in a 5-day span, and I don't just necessarily mean Monday through Friday, but we have 3 days where they're in the negative points, then you know what? I'm reaching out to mom or dad or whomever takes care of that kiddo and say, you know what? Is there something going on? There's something I should be aware of. And so that worked out really good, to where I was able to keep up with my calls and my contacts with parents, but more often than not, it was on the positive side. And really, it came down to a very rare thing, maybe once every 3 weeks, where I had more of that crucial conversation about, you know what, Brian, I don't know what's up, but there's been 3 days this last week where he ended up in negative points. Because you can also add notes on why you took points away, or if you had them pre-coded. Can you tell me what's going on? Oh, you know what, Mr. Pettis, the situation is we've been up late because, our family came in from out of town and we've been barbecuing every night, or whatever the situation is. So just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. All right. So let me jump down here and come in and check slide 35 on a virtual parking lot. And someone put in here, how will virtual PBIS look this year as far as the incentives? Excellent question. I'm going to give you the lawyer answer. That's something that we're still working on. Our committee needs to come back together, because one of the considerations that eventually we're going to have, and whoever's on slide 32, don't click on there yet. We're not done. Thank you. We need to make sure that we address it both for the kiddos that are here and the kiddos that are going to be, just coming to us virtually through an internet connection. So that is something that we're still working on trying to flesh out. Even if you're not on our committee, but you have a super cool idea on what we can do, by all means, we're open to that. All right. So any other parking lot questions? And thank you for that brave soul who put one in there. And again, I apologize for not sharing that earlier, that resource was there.
Just other questions that have come in, Mr. Bettis, for example, Ms. Chase asked, why is the behavior incentive every 4 to 5 weeks and not 3 weeks, coinciding with progress report? I reminded her that our progress reports are not set specifically. We have 8 weeks each of the first 2 grading periods, so we split those in half. And then coming back around, if it's STAR testing time, we're a little more limited with staff. We're and our teachers in terms of trying to juggle all of those things. But we are getting our incentives in. Thank you, Ms. Chase. And Renfro had a good point. Thank you, Ms. Renfro, about items and what we post. And that was, we had some parents also shared that request, that comment, just to, if it's class specific, just send it. If it's campus wide, just making sure that we're careful about how we share that, so that they're not inundated with all of these messages. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for sharing that and keeping an eye on the chat box. All right. Moment we've been waiting for. If we can come up to slide 32, the exit ticket. If you can click on that link to the Google form, go on through there. Once you're done entering in your answer on the Google form, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break. Do not close down this meeting link, but you can go ahead and mute or turn off your camera then once you've put in your answer. But at 4:05, that's 4:05, we will be coming back together at this meeting link for the second exciting conclusion and installment to our session today. All right. Any questions? If we're good, show me a thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. So once you're done with your exit ticket, you can take a quick stretch break. We'll be back at this meeting link at 4:05. Thank you very much. Two-minute warning, everyone. 1 minute warning. All right, I'm showing 4:05 on my computer. So everyone should be back at their computers. Camera on, mic's muted. All about being a good citizen. And if you can show me in your camera thumbs up, I should still be presenting, and it should read a slide synchronous instruction toolkit. We all see that? Awesome, awesome, awesome. So it's about how to go from being completely lost to a total boss, all right? Hold on 1 second. Hello, ma'am. Sorry about that. That was Miss Letty calling. One of our tech people were here. So this is where we talk about the real world stuff and just rolling with it. So I apologize for that interruption. So we, again, want to focus on our UCISD paw print. We should be captivating, covering, discovering, personalize, reflect, and inspire. Oh, I heard an echo. Please make sure your mics are muted just so you don't hear me echo and you get that wong, 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 wong. So norms and expectations, I'll be an active participant. My camera will remain on at all times. My microphone will be muted unless I am sharing. I will not criticize others' ideas, and I will not change or delete others' work on purpose. So again, our objective for right now is we're going to cover the tools and pedagogical practices used in the previous lesson, so that PBIS lesson. So again, that was kind of twofold on what we're going to was about. That way, I will be able to virtually reach all my students and mold the little lumps of clay into lean, mean learning machines by using Google Apps I already know and new ways to create engaging lessons. All right? I want to share a video with you all real quick. There is audio. I'm not certain if this will come through in the audio. Oops. Let's try this again.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch. The tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stopped.
Y'all notice the difference? Both teams doing the same exact thing, but it's a different era and it's a different way of doing it. And I share this with you to kind of keep that in mind. When it comes to teaching, good pedagogical practices are just that. They're going to be good, they're lasting, they're universal. But with this COVID situation, how we do things are going to be changed up, and how we deliver, it has to be so much quicker, because our kiddos and what they want, as I talk about, they're the video game generation that, they're used to things as popping at them and change, and constantly going. So I want you to think back here and give you all about 30 seconds. Think about the previous lesson or the previous workshop that we did, the PBIS lesson. There was kind of twofold things. One, I did want to share out our usual PBIS thing and refresh your course, but I also wanted you to model for you all a way that we can deliver. I'm not saying it's the absolute best way, but a way that we can deliver our instruction virtually to our kiddos. So just kind of think about it, and we'll come back to share out here shortly. Ten seconds. All right, coming back together. Mr. Montoya, you mind unmuting your mic and sharing with us what you think about, or anything, good, bad, or otherwise, on the previous lesson we shared out with you over PBIS?
I think that we need to use, just to present the best objectives to the students and all the lesson, and try to find the best way to get a feedback from them.
Absolutely, thank you, thank you. If I have, let's see, Miss Delia Trevino, if you mind sharing, just kind of give a little bit of feedback on what your thoughts were about the previous lesson. Perhaps her mic's not working. Ms. Gillard, do you mind sharing with us what some thoughts about the previous lesson?
I thought it was pretty cool how we were kind of all active, going through different slides and sharing what we thought about it. I guess there were a few little mishaps with text boxes. I may be the one that moved the slides, so I'm not sure, but otherwise I kind of liked it. Kind of the pace was pretty quick, and
Excellent, thank you. And so what I want to share with you, the whole basic concept was, I had a bunch of teachers share with us, and I appreciate those of you through last week were like, how exactly do we pull all this together? And again, I want to preface what we're sharing out. It's not the only answer, but we kind of got to the point where I kind of had a challenge where I was like, what can we use to create a well-rounded lesson that the students would be engaged in? So if I was a student, and that's why I really wanted you to look from that perspective on the PBIS one, is that you're just a learner and interacting with a lesson in that way. Is it engaging? But on the flip side, as an administrator, if I were to come in and do a virtual walkthrough, was it still covering the best pedagogical practices? Are we covering the fundamental 5? Are we hitting the 4 C's? Is there small group purposeful talk? Is there critical writing? Is there critical thinking? Are we moving up on Bloom's taxonomy to cover? But again, we're in a situation where we have very limited resources on what we have. I know we're working with old technology. So I had tried to do this lesson, and it was centered around using one laptop and resources and apps that we already knew. So it was only using Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Forms, Google Calendar. We didn't get to a point, and I apologize, one of the slides that did get deleted during the presentation was a Jamboard and Google Meets, and then obviously Google Classroom to push it out to you all. With the exception of Jamboard, these are all the basic Google apps that I know you're already familiar with. It's just kind of pulling them all together in a different way that's a little bit more unconventional, because we're used to, like I'm doing right now, I have a Google slide presentation, I'm just presenting in presentation mode, but trying to mix it up a little bit. And again, this is not my original idea. I had researched and pulled from different sources for adult learners and looked at how can we tweak it a little bit to fit what we use here on our district, plus our age group that we're obviously targeting. But again, with the least amount of technology, because I know the thing that was tripping me up when I was thinking about it over the summer, and a lot of you shared, was how do I video myself? I got, one old laptop, it's working, but it has to be plugged in. And how do I get to my whiteboard? That's where Jamboard comes in. I want us to kind of think about right now as we start going through this is we are going to have to do the delivery portion of our instruction totally different than what we're used to. I know some of you are coming up with different ideas. Well, if I position my laptop this certain way and I can catch the angle just right and I can write up here on the whiteboard, that may work, and that is a simple solution. But my question to you, and this is very hypothetical, is God forbid we have to close your classroom down because someone tests positive. How many of us have a whiteboard in our house? And if you do, I'm super jealous because I don't have one in my house. And my wife would kill me if I start writing on the bare walls. So I want us to think about Jamboard, and the reason why I brought this in to use as a resource is because it's basically a virtual whiteboard. You can write on it on interactive, and this is why we had the iPads ready for you, because you can essentially, we want to get you an iPad to where you can interact with it. That way, if Monday, Tuesday, you're in your classroom and you're working, you can interact with the kiddos on Jamboard. But for some reason, we had to shut down the classroom because of concern with COVID. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're working from your classroom. Guess what? You're still using all the same tools as long as you have an active internet connection. So again, why these resources? First and foremost, they work across everything. I have tried them out. It does not matter if you have a laptop, Chromebook, iPad, Android tablet, smartphones, because it's all Google-based, it will work across anything. I have tried it out on everything. It works on everything. So it's kind of following the KISS method. Keep it simple, not only for yourself, but also the students. We don't want you to be in a place where you're overwhelmed, because this is new for all of us, but where you're also getting inundated with a lot of calls or contacts from parents on, oh my gosh, how do we access this? How do we do this? No, these are platforms that we're already familiar with. We're just kind of mixing them up and putting them in a different context and presenting them and pushing them out to the students in a different way to be a little bit more interactive, but it does work on anything. For example, I tested this on my personal Android tablet. I know y'all think I'm a huge tech geek. I love technology. My personal tablet's 5 years old. It's running four versions back of Android OS, and it still works with all this stuff. So I just want to prove to you that it does work across anything and everything. So super quick, and I know we're coming up because we kind of gave ourselves a time limit of 4:30. We're going to do this real quick, real dirty, just to kind of get your feet wet. But ultimately, what I recommend to you all is practice, 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 practice. All right. So what we want to do here is just kind of do the very basic structure on what I had in that PBIS lesson to kind of get you started with. So what you should be able to do, you can go ahead and minimize, do not close down, minimize this presentation screen. You'll still hear me in the background. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up a Google slide deck. So you can either come over to the waffle that's over here on the right and come over to Google Slides, or you can come to your Drive, whatever works for you. But you're going to want to open up a slide deck under your Google Slides. We're just going to do a good old-fashioned blank presentation. And again, I also know we're at different levels of technology. So, if this is something where it's like, my goodness, Mr. Pettis, this is super remedial, totally understand with it, then you can feel free to jump ahead on what I'm sharing out. If you're about where I'm at on levels, you can come along and just shadow me. But main thing we want to do is, this should be the backbone of these virtual lessons. And again, it does not matter if we get to mid-September where we actually have kiddos in your classroom as well. You can still push this out to them and interact with them the same way I did. And you're interacting with the kiddos the same way that they're at home or they're, wherever tying into you. So with your slide deck being open, of course, you're going to need to have a title. Let's just keep it simple. We're going to do sample. You're going to want to click over here and you're going to want to add 3 or 4 blank slides. And again, what I recommend once you get started, again, you're going to want to pick a concept or content or for your lesson to get going. But the main thing is Initially, when you're setting this up, your slides are going to be in order, just because it's simple for you to input all that information. However, once you do have your completed project, you're going to want to mix these slides up. So if you all remember when I was doing the PBIS presentation, we're jumping at, say, come from slide 7 down to 24 and back up to 8 and whatnot. This comes back to like what Ms. Goodwin was talking about, the little brain breaks. If you have all this rolled out in sequential order, what's going to happen is what I already saw some of you doing in the PBIS lesson. Well, what's the next slide? What's the next slide? What's the next slide? They're trying to get ahead. The student's not going to be listening to what you're saying. If you have them in your finished product jumping around from slide to slide to slide, it's keeping them on their toes. Essentially, you're working the virtual power zone to keep them engaged as you're going through. So you should have, like I said, 5 blank slides on there. What you want to do is just get used to titling these things. So you can put, hello, you can put lesson frame, you can put whatever you want to have on there. One of your next slides. So if you're wondering how I did and linked in the Google Forms, coming again back to your Google Drive. If you clicked on that and you click New, coming over to More. And by the way, I am recording this. I know I'm going a little bit fast. Once the recording's available, we'll push it out. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this is warp speed, not a problem. You're going to have a recording of this. Come to Google Forms. Once you get it, just like how we do for any other forms, when you do your share, you come up to send. You should have a little pop-up with like a chain link thing that gives you a link. You'd want the shortened URL. You'd click copy. And you'd come on back over here to your slide deck. And then you can just right-click and paste in that link. And so once you hit enter, and it should be kind of a tealish blue and underlined, boom, you have a hyperlink from your Google Slides to your Google Form. Make sure on your Google Form, before you close that down though, give it a cool name. I would recommend your first Google Form you have, do a bell ringer. So when I had you all sign in to the PBIS one, I had a bell ringer on what was PBIS. The reason why I did that is when I come into the classroom, I need to capture attendance on Skyward. Just like how we'd normally give a writing prompt bell ringer exercise, you have this Google Form now that's doing it for you. So you're capturing, the kids are engaged while you're going through, you're virtually checking your cameras to see who's logged in so you can do your Skyward attendance. So same thing like you would be in the physical classroom, we're just using Google Forms to have that bell ringer. All right, so we have that form labeled. We'll come and jump back over to our sample slide deck presentation. Don't forget to label that slide bell ringer. You'd want to drop down to another slide. So one of the other things that we had, I know a lot of people like using Zoom because you could have the breakout sessions like we saw with Ms. Goodwin earlier. We don't have that functionality within Google Meets. Our workaround and how I had those breakout sessions for each PLC group, you should already be familiar on how to set up a calendar invite because you were always sending invites to us when you're having your virtual PLC meetings. You'd want to set up a calendar invite the same exact way. Let me pop open my calendar. So for illustrative purposes, I had a parent share and it was labeled here on my calendar if you're looking at the presentation screen that I'm presenting, named after my kiddos. And when I click on it to open it, we'd have the meeting link. You don't want to do the gray one, that's just the title. You want the blue one, that's the actual hyperlink. And just like we did with the Google Form address, you right click to copy and you come over here and right click and paste. And now you have a hyperlink to that Google Meet. Something important to remember is you do not want to send out invites to your kiddos. And I liken it to the fact, think about when you've gone to a PD session at like the Marriott Riverwalk, and they have different rooms there. Even when you're not there, those rooms are still there. Same thing with our Google Meets. If you send out that invite, or once you establish it, that meeting room's still there. even though you're not logged in, if you send out invites to your individual students, they could go into that meeting without you knowing it and have sidebar conversations. That's a no-no, and we don't want that. So if you just keep that meeting linked to yourself on your calendar and you throw in that hyperlink right here, then you're the one that has control of it. Meeting link. And it's the same process if you want to import in Google Docs. So when you go back and think about the breakout sessions, where at each PLC group come in and use this with the documents underneath it were shared out. Same thing on once you open up that document, label it whatever you want, you would right click and put it in. That's the other benefit on using the Google. The right click and all these shortcuts is the exact same regardless of what platform you use, be it slides, docs, sheets, or even Jamboard. Jamboard is the same process. And while we're speaking of Jamboard, if you can click on over, if you're not watching my presentation right now and you're kind of playing around with your own slide deck, if you can, please come back to my presentation screen. And I want to show you real quick why I like Jamboard. Show me, if you can, real quick, thumbs up on the screen that you are seeing my Jamboard screen being presented. Perfect. So I'm going to open it. This was the Jamboard that I had intended to use and accidentally digitally got misplaced by someone. Think of it as a whiteboard, plain and simple. You can import pictures, as Ms. Goodwin talked about. You can write on it. You can, do whatever. This is why I want you to have the iPad. With the iPad, you can link in on this, and with your finger, or some of you already have the stylus, you'd be able to write on there, and it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to write with your mouse, on the computer. But the other thing is, like, I intended to share out this Jamboard with you all to kind of, like, where are you at with PBIS? Are you like, oh my gosh, we're in the Sam Hills going on, I'm in the middle, I'll be okay, and no, I'm like a boss. So what I intended for you all to do was click on our checkbox image up here. And then if you right click, oh, my cursor's not working. Yeah, these are the tech difficulties we go with. It should come out to be an image where, like, you're sticky. And so I'll just show it because it's here and I know we're pressed for time. If you see the little circle with the 3 dots, you can right click. And it asks you to duplicate. What I intended for you all to do was duplicate a check mark and put it under there so I could kind of get an idea, simple pictograph. Most of my class over here on the left, and we're scared about what's going on. Are we in the middle? No, I'm rocking and rolling. No, I have 3/4 of my kiddos over here. We're a boss with it. We know what's going on. I love it. We're free flowing with it. Jamboard, like I said, think about a virtual whiteboard. I challenge you to play around with this and use this, and not use your physical whiteboard in your classroom until we have an all clear and all 100% of your class rosters back in your classroom, because I would hate for you not to be familiar with this. God forbid something happens and we have to close down your room, and then you need to use something like this to share it with your kids. The other cool thing is the kids can interact with it in real time as well. You all can come
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
This is me because I don't know. On this Jamboard, you said that we could duplicate that check mark. Will it show it kind of like on that Google slide, who is actually marking where? So that way, as a teacher, I can kind of get a guess of, all right, Gabe doesn't know what's going on, so I need to come back and visit with Gabriel later on my own, or do I need to kind of have them tell me, all right, who pretty much doesn't know what's going on or who has it down?
You can go back, and so thank you. Great setup on this. I'm going to kind of come back and I'll answer your question here.
Sorry.
No problem. Part of the reason, and you'll see up here on the top right, just like all Google products, when multiple people are signed in, you're going to see who's signed in. This is a little bit different. It doesn't have the history like Google Docs or Google Sheets does, but you'll be able to see who interacts with it. So there's a couple different ways you can do. You can add essentially unlimited boards going all the way over. So you could set up where it's one board for a small group or an individual file for each kiddo. I would recommend to kind of use a combination of all this. So coming back to my PBIS lesson I had my form here, but I had my checkpoint form here. But I also, because it's a form, comes back over here to this Google Sheet. This was really going to be what I'd want to use because it timestamps the kids, who it was that inputted that answer, and I could see, were they giving me an answer that aligned with my question, or was it totally off the mark? Really, the Jamboard I would use for more kind of free thinking group type work. If you want to kind of gauge where your kiddos are at, I would have it tied to a Google form. The other reason why I would have it tied to a Google form is we're doing synchronous instruction. We need to prove to TEA, although they don't specify how you do it, you need to show the kids logged in for the majority of your class. Well, if you periodically have checkpoints that are Google Forms throughout your class, and you have, you know, Mr. TEA come knock on your door and, you know, hey, Mr. Pettis, how can you prove that Miss Chase or, you know, Miss Stoner was actively participating in your PBIS lesson? Oh, well, right here, it shows on August 10th at 1:17, Miss Stoner logged in and her answer to this question was monkeys. Boom, it's time-stamped. You're not doing the lifting. The kids are already doing the heavy lifting. You got to keep in mind, the average physical classroom, teachers do 80% of the work, students do 20% of the work. But you do 100% of the planning, 100% in your PLCs, at home, during your conference time. We need to flip it around during the instructional time where you're doing the 20%, they're doing the 80%. So that's one of the beautiful things on setting things up like this, where you're going to be able to see, as Mr. Salazar wanted to know, hey, where do I know who I need to come back on? Well, you have your check for understanding, but it kills two birds with one stone. You're also showing that they were engaged in your lesson. Now, if you have a kid that didn't answer, well, then that's you need a conference with that kid individually. You may need to call, Mr. Salazar, your son wasn't logged in. He didn't give an answer to any of my checkpoints. He only did the bell ringer, and then his camera was on. He was there, but he wasn't tuned in. How can we help him? How can we make it better? So that's one of the reasons, like I said, not only to see where your kiddos are at, but kind of cover yourself too in case TEA did come down, because they never specified how. So I want to try to make it as easy as possible for you. But again, think about Jamboard, more global thinking. I'm brainstorming, or whatever I'd write on my whiteboard is what I'm writing on Jamboard. All right. It will save and be backed up to your Google Drive, but it doesn't have the history to pinpoint exactly who did what. All right. And I know, oh my gosh, I apologize. I'm already over on time. Don't throw your chanclas at me. So I'm going to come back here. Keep following me on the presentation skill. Play with it. These are all programs you've used, you've worked with. Like anything, practice with it. Think of it like a bike. The more you practice, the better off you're going to be with it. And that's my big advice. It's nothing, no crazy over the top apps. I know you're probably thinking, for example, I have Miss Hernandez, who, she's our tech guru and has, thinks at a total different dimension than any of us on technology. Like, oh, but you know what? I prefer this, this whiteboard app over this whiteboard app. It's not a paid endorsement. I'm just telling you, these apps that I used will work on any platform the kids have to make it as stress-free as possible for you all. So I want you to, few things as you're planning and building these on your own. Think differently. You need to think about a flipped classroom. You need to have your kids come into your lessons with some pre-work done, because it's going to make it easier for you to actually do the instruction while you end up with some kids in your physical space, some kids at home, all right? So it can't be the old-fashioned way. I come in here, I drone on, like I know I'm poorly modeling right now, and then you go home and you do it, and we come back and we just do that cycle over and over. You're going to have to be so prepped and be such, a boss or a tech ninja. And I have no idea what's happening. I think they're washing the windows. I apologize. That you're having pre-work already sent out, so the kids are coming in and you're spending more of the time doing collaborative work and facilitating discussions. And it's not just you droning on like I know I'm doing right now. The other thing I recommend is think in chunks. Think in 45-minute blocks as you're planning out your Google Slides. I know some of you are going to have more time than that. Some of you are less time than that. The reason why I pick 45 minutes is that's the smallest block of time that you're going to have for like social studies, thinking about my 6th grade teachers. So if you can plan it out this way as your baseline and then adjust your timing from there, it's a good starting point. So think about in the 45-minute block, you should have 5 minutes for your bell ringer, 10 minutes for the I do, roughly 15 minutes for the we do, where we're working together on something, and then 10 minutes for them to start off on the I do, and then 5 minutes for your exit ticket. But again, be flexible. This is a proposed recommended baseline to start off with the smallest chunk of time. But if you know that you have a 90-minute block because that's how your personal class schedule is, definitely adjust. Your bell ring and your exit ticket should still be around the 5-minute mark. It shouldn't go beyond that. And again, we understand it's going to be kind of nebulous and going in and out. You may need to spend a little bit more time in the we do. But again, with this digital platform, the I do, a lot of it should be pushed off to where some of the kids are doing it outside of your synchronous live instruction, where it's that downtime between their morning and afternoon class or the homework or pre-work on there. So again, I don't want you to think, well, Mr. Pettis said 5, 10, 15, 10, 5. This is a starting point only for you, and then adjust based on your content and what that time allows. So if we understand that, give me a double thumbs up.
Mr. Pettis, I'm going to jump in and share that Griffin is sharing out with us, hopefully first thing tomorrow morning. They were looking at that synchronous playing. So just reminding teachers, we'll share that with you. If you have more questions, then don't hesitate to ask us. I know that question came up earlier, but in speaking with various teachers, Mr. Pettis and I had the conversation. He goes, look, this is where, it's the technology component. How do I make this? So, you know how to teach math, but how do I do it how do I set up the lesson? So Mr. Pettis, I really appreciate this. Excellent.
No problem. Thank you. So again, when C9 and Griffin shares something with you, or Doc shares something with you, definitely go with that. I just want you to think about this 45-minute chunk as a starting point. My PBIS lesson I had created trying to get it in 45 minutes, but when you look at the great conversation we had, we went way over that. So if you're starting and that's your starting point target, I'm breaking down that I have these certain slides around that, more than likely it will go beyond the 45 minutes. But if we kind of, like I said, just purely a starting point, but whatever Griffin and Doc share with you, that's what you're going to ultimately want to go with. All right. So just kind of real quick reflection here. And again, I know I'm already encroaching your time and I apologize, but think back to the PBIS lesson. So I'd already shared with a couple teachers, the main thing when we're doing walkthroughs, and same thing with the virtual walkthroughs, we're looking at domain 1 and 2 and 3. To me, in the virtual setting, domain 1, the planning and the instruction are going to be more key. The classroom management is going to look a little bit different, and that's going to come back to you really front-end loading that first day and that first week, a good portion of your periods, covering over what your norms are. Highly recommend that as a PLC group, you get together, sharing out what those norms are, and talk with Griffin and Doc on what are some good universal ones. I did very generic ones on the ones for this presentation and the PBIS one. Camera always being on is a non-negotiable, plain and simple. It has to be. Active engagement and mics muted until we're called on has to be another non-negotiable, but that's something that can be open and discussed. But thinking about it, planning and instruction should be the main ones. So I want you to think back on the PBIS lesson as rhetorical question right now. Did I cover my objective on the lesson frame, and was it aligned to our ultimate goal? Did I have questions and encourage all students to be engaged in complex higher order thinking? On domain 2 with the instruction, did I provide students opportunities to take initiative for their own learning? Did we provide differentiated instruction methods and content to ensure students have the opportunity to master what is being taught? Side note, did I capture evidence that the kids were doing that? And again, this is all from the proficient column from different sections of these domains. 2C, did I consistently invite input from students in order to monitor and adjust instruction and activities? And then the classroom management, 3A, students actively participate in groups, manage supplies, equipment with very limited teacher direction. And again, I know this is the first time we're kind of learning, so there was a little bit more direction, but our ultimate goal is we want to release them to where they can do that. 3B, engages all students in relevant and meaningful learning. I hope you found it meaningful and relevant. And then 3C, students work respectively, individually, and in groups. So we did whole group work, and I tried to also model that gradual release to where I had modeled some of it or showed you how to do it, and I was, reminding you, don't jump ahead, come down back to this slide. Then we all are going to do it, and then ultimately, right now is the kind of the we do. We're working together real quick to do a quick and dirty slide deck, and then the I do is you're going home, and you're doing the homework / pre-work on building your own slide deck and building in your links and whatnot. All right. So again, I hope I hit these things. If I didn't, seriously, email me and say, you know what, Mr. Perez, I think you missed it on this one. You could have done this better, because we all can improve. So now you're at the point, okay, now what? Practice, practice, practice. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, all right? And even at that, there's really no such thing as perfection. It's about getting better than we were the day before. I don't expect you all to have this mastered August 17th when the kids, come in or connect to you virtually, but we have a week to work with it and to play with it. And it's just, again, using stuff that you already know in a different way. One of the big things is, and Ms. Diller touched on, she liked on how we were presenting the slide deck, but it's an edited form. That comes back to, as Mr. Salzar pointed out, I can come back and I can pull up that revision history to find out who did what. If I click on this tab on the PBIS one, and I apologize, I already closed it down, but it's already going to show the activity dashboard. I'm the only one on this one, but it's going to show who did what and timeline. It's another way you can prove who was actively engaged in your classroom. And so I'd want to periodically check that. All right. The other aspect is practice your Jamboard with the computer and the iPad. Again, I highly encourage you all not to use our physical whiteboard, but use the Jamboard, because again, if you're that adept and fluid with it, if God forbid you're sent at home because our campus gets closed down, you're using the same platform. All right. And the cool thing is with the iPad, you can actually pinch to zoom in, and you can write like your math equation and zoom back out, and then it comes out to where it's nice and written small. All right. So again, it's about reimagining the fundamental 5 and 4 C's for your virtual class. Again, I know this is nothing great. Y'all are smarter and better looking than me. You'll be able to take it to the next level. Hello. And work with your peers, again, to establish the school-wide non-negotiables on it. All right. Ultimately, handle it like a boss. Okay.
Some of these other questions, Mr. Pettis, before you hang up, I'm going to send out an email, ladies and gentlemen, shortly. Tomorrow morning, we will have half-day sessions. Our teachers will have content, and our rotation teachers will, and I will tell you specifically which grouping to attend. But it is a 3-hour session on engagement strategies with Tammy Sinclair in terms of what activities for my content specific. So 5th and 6th grade math and science will be together. 5th and 6th grade English language arts and social studies will be together. And so, that'll be going out shortly. The other part of your afternoon will be to work on this. That's why we were really pushing to get this out, Mr. Pettis, so that you can see his specific steps and develop that. And the next thing then is to do that, also calling parents. I'm going to do an all call shortly, letting parents know that they can go in and access. Our rosters have been assigned. We have Meet the Teacher night on Wednesday. So you will be receiving your rosters. We'll print those up and deliver them to you, but you'll have your parents' email so that you can start inviting them and emailing them for your Meet the Teacher night on Wednesday. That's day after tomorrow. Not long, just a quick let them know that I'm going to send you your login, the Google Meets invitation. That way they can come in when you do your first presentation. I know Mr. Montoya say practice also does help to improve, not to be perfect, but remember, we are going to be working on improving that. I know it's frustrating and it can be overwhelming. Don't suffer in silence, y'all. Come in and ask. You can see Mr. Pettis is a whiz at this. Ms. Hernandez, look at your resources, but try with something and try to make it work. If it doesn't, don't sit and suffer. Reach out, call us. We'll be happy to rush out to help y'all. But we're going to stay positive about this and help each other. Anything else?
Real quick, because I know some of you, because we're all at different levels. So this is where I get to do my YouTube sales pitch here, all right? When it comes to practice, I know I flew through this super quick, and some of you are like, oh gosh, still, how do I do this? Once I get this recording available, I'm going to upload it. Over the weekend, I did a video series on how to do all of this step by step, all right? It'll be released probably, we'll say at 12 midnight. The boss doesn't know about this, but this is my free gift to you all. It is literally a 30 video series The reason why it's 30 videos is because it was done on Screencastify in 5-minute increments. It takes you step by step on how to implement this and how to do your very first lesson to welcome the kids in. It shows you everything on how to do hyperlinks for calendars, the breakout sessions, everything that was in that PBIS lesson is on these videos. The video is already uploaded, but I'm waiting to upload this meeting link so you can also come back and see what it looks like on the PBIS lesson and just kind of watch, you know, kind of think about it, an outside instructional round sort of thing to come back. Again, I'm not saying this is a be-all, end-all solution. This is just a jumping off point. I know some of you gone to use like Flipgrid, Nearpod, and all that. Great apps. Don't overwhelm yourself. Focus on this first. The other reason, again, why I wanted you to focus on this and recommending is once we get our iPads in and we implement the Apple Classroom part, all this will be able to flow and blend seamlessly. For those of you who are like Ms. Hernandez and Ms. Bustamante, love technology, and you want to go and add, then I'd say add one of these, you know, Nearpod or Flipgrid apps like once a week. But again, you also don't want to overwhelm the students because they were used to the asynchronous where I just log in and I see a video of Ms. Himes or Mr. Montoya or whomever. Now it's going to be different for them as well. All right, so we want to make sure it's a slow, reasonable rollout for them. The challenge on the YouTube video series was this, because I know some of you are like, man, he has all the cool technology. I used my wife's laptop that was 5 years old, so the camera's a little bit grainy, and that's all I used, plain and simple. The last video in that series shows you live time, me using my Android tablet that I have right here, and my son's iPad and my smartphone, and showing you how it can manipulate all at the same time, and it works across all platforms. So I don't want you to think there's some kind of trickery to it. All this can be done on old equipment across all platforms, and that's just really why I recommend it. So that link, once I get this video uploaded, probably be like around 10 to 12 tonight, it'll be uploaded and shared out. Total, it comes out to 100 and I believe 50 minutes of videos. You can jump around to the different sections that work for you. If you're, like I said, a tech ninja and you don't need it, don't worry about it. But I hope it helps. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, don't panic. That YouTube link won't be sent out till later tonight. Thank you all. And I'm sorry that I kept you. I know I ran 16 minutes over. I apologize.
Not a problem, sir. I will copy, I will answer some of these questions about being here for Meet the Teacher night and such. So I will send that out later on this evening. But I will get the invitation out for tomorrow's session so that you know if you're morning or afternoon. But thank you very much, Mr. Pettis, for doing all of this work for our teachers to support them, to give them a framework to work off of because they've been just appreciate it. I'm gonna let y'all go. It's 4:47. And so y'all be safe. Y'all take care. Thank you, ladies.
Share out the YouTube videos with others if you know it'll help them too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Also, those of y'all that wanted your blue folders, if you want to come pick them up, I'm still here. Also, these are the only 2 cords I got. But Mr. Valadez shared with me that he has that cart of iPads. If we could get those updated ones, we'll look at that. But that was part of a separate grant, so I don't want to get into something and pass out something that I may not be able to. So we are looking at that. In the meantime, we'll have Paris tomorrow start pulling some of your old iPad cords, power cords, so that you have those. We just wanted you to have an iPad at this point right now. So that's it. Y'all take care. Have a good evening. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Be fabulous.
All right. Get some rest.